All right, everybody, welcome back to Moonhawk Studios Presents. I am your host, Mac Paladin, and of course, we did get a little bit of a late start here. It is largely my fault, if not entirely my fault. Uh, I wasn't feeling great beforehand, so I wanted to make sure that we started as professionally and non-groany as possible. Of course, we are professionally unprofessional around here, so your mileage may vary. All right, with me in the studio, of course, are my good friends Adam.
Yes, I am here.
We got Kevin in the hizzy this week.
Yeah, I'm back.
Petty
Never
fans
really
lurking.
left.
What is it to be a man?
A miserable pile of secrets.
What can change the nature, though?
The Golix is here.
Yes, that is a thing that I am.
All right, and of course we have Barias, aka Kira.
Hi, everyone.
All right. Now, as the talk show hosts are wont to say, allegedly we have a great show for you tonight. But before we get to that, let's get to our news, catch up, and all that stuff. Adam, what you got?
Like, prepping for Mother's Day, I guess.
That's the thing.
Not that much, since it's a, let's say, less involved affair than my mother's birthday last month. Less fancy restaurants and more McDonald's.
Hmm.
Yeah, but they do have that fancy ketchup, so. Interestingly enough, I don't believe you can actually buy Heinz fancy ketchup in a store.
I would not know. Don't think I ever looked for it.
Like, that's one thing that's unique to their packets of ketchup, is that they're the only purveyors of that particular variety of ketchup. I'm just trying to stretch it out for you, bud. All right.
Do not do that.
Yeah. What?
I was torn between choking on my food and saying that's what she said. You said, let me stretch it out for you, bud.
Yeah, and I just hit the Wilhelm scream.
Mm-hmm.
All right, rewinding the tape there. Kevin, you were off last week. How was your last 2 weeks?
Yeah, well, I was off last week, of course, because of going to a ball game, taking a well-deserved Wednesday off to enjoy a day at Truist Park. It was a nice extended experience. Went all the way to midnight because the ball game went about 10 innings, which I had never gone to an extra innings ball game before. Usually,
10 innings is barely extra innings.
Yeah, well, it still was extra innings, and I'd never been to a game that went that long. So
that's fair.
And the last two, this is the third baseball game I've ever been to in my life. The first time it was solo. First time was at the old Metrodome in Minneapolis for a Twins game, which was a loss. Then I went to a ball game I think it was 2 years ago, either last year or 2 years ago. That was a loss quickly, and we left before the end of the game. Tonight it was, and then last week it was another loss, although this time it wasn't clear cut and went all the way to the final half inning. So at the very least there was that. Other than that, I'm preparing myself for a busy couple of weeks, although I will also be out again on the 8th of June because it's official. I will be heading to Memphis for an anime convention up there.
Woo!
The big Anime BluesCon convention that's being held up there.
I was about to ask you if you were going to ABC.
Yeah. Yep, ABC is the joint, and I'll be it'll be the first anime convention in my entire life.
And then after that, it's off to 1-2-3 con. Wait.
I was going to say, pack plenty of deodorant and be prepared.
Yeah.
Febreze, it can also be used as an offensive weapon.
Yeah, I'll
Actually, that's considered battery, and you can't do that. You'll go to jail.
I will tell you that I will not be alone on this, so don't you worry about that. I will be with veterans of conventions, if you will, who know the ins and outs of the game. So I will be well set. Don't you worry about that. So yeah, so that's something to look forward to for me for early June. But in any event, next couple weeks are going to be busy at the theaters, starting with tomorrow because a certain doctor is going to begin his theatrical run, and that'll be, of course, Doctor Strange, not that other doctor.
The other lesser-known doctor.
Well, there's only two doctors in entertainment.
I was being sarcastic.
I know you were. I know you were. Anyway, that's what's happening in my world.
At least that's what he's trying to convince everybody.
Yeah. But yeah, that's what's going on in my world. Next.
All right, Petty Fan, what's cooking?
Stuff and things. So, Thursday, my sister had to take her cat Scuttle to the vet because he was acting a little weird. Turns out he had bladder stones. So originally the plan was to take him in on Tuesday to get them removed, but Thursday night he started puking. So Friday morning, my sister called the vet and they were like, yeah, bring him in, we need to take those stones out. So yeah, he had emergency surgery on Friday to get bladder stones removed, and yeah, that's been fun.
Jeez.
I bet.
Saturday was mine and my sister's birthday. Obviously, we didn't do a whole lot because of Kitty just having surgery. And not a whole else really big to note. Just been kind of dealing with Kitty.
All right. Galix.
Well, we finished MS Saga on Max Stream last Sunday, so next time I'm going to have to do actual translation work, or at least try to figure out how to make a game go.
Yeah.
We're doing, apparently we're doing, Gundam G Generation 0?
That is it. That is the one.
So...
And I will talk about the trials and tribulations of getting that to work when it's my turn, but go on.
So I've always been a little bit interested about those. They're slightly less interesting to me than Super Robot Wars because most of them don't really do any interweaving stories. It's just like going through existing stories of the series or something. But we'll see how that goes. I've heard good things about that one of the G-Gen games, so...
And it actually has a minor following on Twitch. So because I did a little bit of research on it just to see if it was going to work out.
So hopefully people will come and watch that. Otherwise, I've been playing Super Robot Wars 30, and the last set of DLC that was like supposed to be two things, but it was delayed, so they pushed it into one. Got released like a month ago or something, and I finally got through all the new stuff that the DLC added, and am back in the story. So I'm getting near the end of that, so that's fun. Let's see. We finally got a timeline on when my grandma's going to move in with us, which is sooner than I thought it was, but that's mostly because it was within the next few months, a couple months ago. So now it's late this month. Because, time moves forward. Unfortunately.
Except when it stands still.
That usually just seems like it stands still. Otherwise, not really a whole lot. It's kind of a gray day here, so I have very little energy.
All right. Various.
So, as I was talking about in the pre-show, I had to order my dinner twice due to a really weird DoorDash hiccup. So apparently it had us in the wrong zip code, so the Dasher attempted to deliver and March complete a delivery to Oro Valley, which is not where I live. And then I had to fight with DoorDash, the app, because it's like, oh, we see that you did this, this, and this. Here's a $10 credit. I'm like, I just spent $41. I would like to order my food. So I come in and I grab the number and I call the DoorDash customer service line. And like 3 seconds in, the lady's just like, let me go get my supervisor.
This is above
So they
my
actually-
pay grade.
Right. I did tell her that I'm trying to not be mad at her. It's not her fault, but I am angry. So I get transferred to an elevated level of technical support. I explain the whole thing to the guy, and he is just like, okay. And it takes like 15 minutes, 20 minutes or whatever. But he has to go through and keep doing this stuff with the computer, and finally gets it all updated and situated. And finally we got the credit back so that I can actually go place the same order at the same KFC. And then the dasher I got for the second one was super awesome. She was messaging me, let me know, like, okay, I'm still waiting for them. They just dropped fresh fries. And then she's like, they just asked if this was a duplicate order. They had this order an hour ago. And I'm like, let me short story this for you. Since we're just typing on the app. And she goes, oh, okay, cool. She says, I'm on my way. So I finally got my food. I'm happy about that. The only other thing that's noteworthy, I believe, is I actually ordered the stuff for my next stream cosplay. And anybody who's interested in like trans discussions about being trans femme or trans mask, I'm doing a co-stream next on my channel, ttv/Various, at Friday the 13th at 3 p.m. Pacific with 3 other streamers.
You know, you're lucky that on the food thing, it could have been a lot worse. This was pre like DoorDash and stuff, but one time for my RPG group, we ordered pizza, and we live in Yarmouth, Maine, and we accidentally ordered somehow online, I believe, from a pizza place for it to be delivered to same address in Yarmouth, Massachusetts.
Oh.
Which that address doesn't exist, but there is a street that matches or is very close. So they, we ate late that day.
Oh my god.
Sorry.
No, that's fine.
Yeah, I've been there, by the way. I was gonna say, I had a pizza order and they wrong place, wrong state. Blah.
That's impressive.
Yeah, well, that and being blacklisted for Papa John's when I was in college.
I mean, there are worse things than being blacklisted
For like
for
a
Papa
good
John's.
reason or a dumb reason?
We lived in a dorm tower, so there were a lot of rooms on a lot of floors. And apparently the delivery driver was only allowed to come to the lobby, and they had a lobby phone that you could call to any room in the complex. Well, we always ordered from my friend Jeff's room, and Jeff had his ringer turned off on the phone. I did not know this, so after like 4 different tries where we ordered food and they got mad because it didn't show up, they blacklisted us because they would call up and we wouldn't answer the phone and they'd leave. So they thought we were doing it on purpose to get free pizza.
So good reason, but not intent. Like
Right.
a good reason, but it was ultimately a mistake.
Right.
Well, shoot. Tippy has a lot to say about that.
As is a cat's
Well, yeah.
prerogative.
SOP.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Any film stuff you want to talk about?
I have more or less reached like 99% completion of the bridge virtual set, so I can actually go back to making scenes with it. So yay for that. That's right, you haven't actually seen any of it either.
Yeah, I was doing other things, trying to not interfere.
Yeah, the last like 4 days that I was working on stuff was making chairs.
Not exactly something I need to sit over her shoulder watching, you know.
Right.
Well, that backrest is approximately 0.34 inches too short, so you're going to need to fix all of that.
Yeah.
Building the command share was the most interesting. Actually, I used a pre-existing model and stripped it down, and then built the command share around that, and then removed the entire original structure.
Nice. For those of you new to our podcast, we've been deploying a lot of different tools, and back in December I purchased a 1-year license to Live 2D because I was getting tired of the technical problems we kept having with the various other programs that we kept trying to use, like the limitations of them, because we were kind of we would set up these paper doll models in Photoshop and Cy, and Varias would spend weeks cutting them to pieces.
Mm-hmm.
And then what would happen is we'd have this bone structure program in After Effects called Duix.
Yeah, DUIK. I think it's Swedish.
Yeah, Duik. And let's just say it had a certain YouTube quality to it. like the stuff our friend Nathan Bonner did in Anime Studio 11 years ago was more impressive than some of the stuff we were doing with Duik, because it was literally like if you wanted to do an about face, there was no subtle turn. It was just frame flip.
Mm-hmm. No, I did find some creative solutions around this, especially for like the grab and kiss or the choices thing.
Right, but it seemed to take 10 times longer.
Yeah.
Like once you get Live 2D rigged, the world is your oyster.
I was able to get a lot of interesting things out of that, from like slight head tilts to fun little, adjustments in expression that were a lot smoother.
Worm's eye
and
view.
felt a lot more organic. Like the character actually had reactions. It wasn't just looking, left, snap to center, look to right. There was actually fluidity to how they were moving, and I was able to add in things like where a character looks down, their head tilts down, and then they decide to respond, so they tip their head up and slightly to the side while they're talking to the person, and it's all really smooth motion, and it actually feels better.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Now, of course, since I've overlapped here, I'm gonna jump right in here with my news, so we don't run over time here. The main things, I just brokered a deal for the Pink Panties side of the studio, of course, to get the latest bonus for Kawaii Neko Daigaku completed, and that will make it so that I don't default on my rent this month. So it's a twofer.
There you go.
But yeah, that went through today, and so that's what I was brokering before we got here. I had a really bad headache, and I was just sitting there. I do this thing where I run a tub, but I fill it with the shower, so that way I can have the water running on my head, because I get a lot of, not necessarily migraine headaches, but just a lot of these tension headaches because of COVID, ADHD, anxiety, whatever you want to blame it on. I just get these fatigue / stress headaches a lot, and so it's just some weird workaround that I have developed for that kind of thing. So I'm sitting there, in the bath, just texting away on Discord with my clients. Yeah, because obviously I'm a middle-aged woman, right? Sitting there with my red wine in the tub, playing games and chatting with people on Instant Messenger.
That is so not what I do, though. I sit at my computer and play video games and chat with people.
I mean, if I just had like a little tray there with like a fruit plate or something, and how did that weird advertisement go?
No idea.
Yeah, somebody found a series of ads involving it just showed like women in the bath with like these little tea trays on across the bathtub, and their marketing scheme was to show the most bizarre like she has both red and white wine in different goblets. There's like an undressed salad. There's like an iPad precariously balanced at the end of the table. Just weird shit. They're like,
I feel like I want to set this commercial on fire just from the description alone.
and it was hilarious and awful at the same time. So yeah. So that's that's what I think about when I think about my unusual activities and how I function in life. But yeah, so that's what I was doing was I was brokering a deal to move that forward because both proud and sad to say that is the only real moneymaker in my studio. But we are still working on the film, and of course, Gallix brought up the fact that we're gearing up to do SD Gundam G Generation 0, and there was some debate in the chat as to whether or not that was the proper name for it. But literally every listing I've found, that is the full title of it. It's not just SD Gundam Generation 0. It is SD Gundam G Generation 0 for whatever reason they decided to.
The G is presumably for Gundam or something.
But
there's more than one SD Gundam G Generation series.
Yeah, and there's a number of games in it, and they just released another game in the G series not that long ago, and it's pretty hot on Twitch right now, so I figure this will be a cool tie-in, because I don't know if I'm ever going to play any of the modern Gundam games on this channel, but I might play it on Trovo. So or possibly on Facebook. We'll see if I ever magically engineer extra time to do all these extra streams, right? But yeah, so we're going to set this up to where I'm going to try to, because Adam and I tried this once before on a less powerful computer, and it did not work well at all, where he tried to watch the video live and we commentated on it in real time. But now
the Star Trek thing?
Yeah. But now that I've got the Ryzen 3, I think it's powerful enough that I can handle streaming to Gallix and to OBS at the same time. So I'm gonna do a test run before Sunday, so we can see if it jacks up or not. But I'm looking forward to that because it'll be the first time we've done a wholly Japanese game that doesn't really have a formal English translation on the channel.
I should at least be able to do menu stuff, but I can't necessarily promise I'll be good with dialogue. Also, obligatory. So you're saying that last time you tried it, it failed for no discernible Ryzen?
Get out.
Wow.
Fired. Fired out of a t-shirt cannon. Yeah. Well, I mean, it was an FX 6300, so it was not the most powerful processor in the world. Neither is this one, but it's better. The trials and tribulations I alluded to in the early part of the show was that I first tried RetroArch, and it was supposed to it supposedly recognizes my DVD-RW drive. I have an external LG DVD-RW drive that I use for playing original media, and it works perfectly fine with PlayStation 2 emulator. But RetroArch, I tried EPCSXE, which is the emulator I've used in the past for PlayStation 1 games, and it does a neat thing where apparently they did the animation sequences by inserting the head blank and then only animating the face. And the emulator likes to shift the face out of position and then lock up at random intervals. Like, you'll hear
I'm
the
sure
audio.
that doesn't end up looking creepy at all.
It would have been a hilarious stream, but that's not what we're aiming for. So I tried it on this machine. I tried it on the all-in-one. I said, well, maybe an Intel processor will make the difference, right? I didn't like it. So the only thing I could do was I finally got it to work in RetroArch by going to that place that will not be named, to download an ISO image of the two discs, the two main game discs. The game is actually 3 discs, but they have a premium disc that we're not going to have anything to do with right now. And
Those can be anything from DLC stages to just like friggin' soundtrack and
right.
art stuff.
So we're not going to futz with that. We're just here to play the game. And so I downloaded an ISO of it, and that worked fine. So, like I said, we should be okay. And that's it for the news. Sorry that ran long, so we may cut into the entertainment segment at the end here because I want to give the maximum possible time to our guests. A long time in coming. It has been almost 13 years since he has been on the program. So here, first I got to do the large crowd here, cheering. Because we have a returning champion. I'd like to welcome back to the program Lou Graziani of Cy-Boar to the program.
Hello.
And
Thanks for having me back.
Absolutely, Lou.
I'm kind of surprised you remembered who I was after 13 years.
Oh, we never forget a guest. Especially one who has such an interesting concept for his comic. So without further ado, let's just jump right into it. Lou, tell us what has been going on with your comic for the last decade. What is the exciting news? How has it moved your life?
My comic of Cy-Boar has progressed, and I have put out new stories. But then after a while, I also expanded into other comics too, and got really involved in the 24-hour comic scheme.
Oh.
Basically, the idea is every October around the country, they have this event where you draw an entire comic book in 24 hours straight. And I organized a number of these events over a series of years in my town in Mansfield, Ohio. And that led me to create a bunch of different stories that weren't about Cy-Boar, but were about different characters.
Oh.
And one of those stories has then become, we're writing it as a script that we might make into a movie or possibly a pilot for a series. And some of the other ones are just kind of neat exercises in storytelling that I've ended up printing and selling at different conventions. And of course, Cy-Boar is still around, and was recently, we did a Kickstarter for a book called Creative Nights. And one of the stories in that book is a Cy-Boar book, and it should be coming out pretty soon. So I guess I'm doing some things along with all that other stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. So tell us about this. Wait, you said movie or pilot or both?
Okay. Well, one of the story, if you've read Cy-Boar, one of the secondary characters is this girl named Kayla, and Kayla is a hacker who uses her hacking skills to find cryptids like the Loch Ness Monster or Bigfoot or Mothman or things like that. And so she's a hacker looking for that kind of stuff specifically, which led her to find Cy-Boar because he's sort of this elusive, crazy creature out in the woods or whatever. And so then I did another comic about just this girl without Cy-Boar in it. And multiple people who didn't know each other were all like, we should make this into a show. So that kind of got us into an idea of developing her further. And right now, a woman I know in England is working on the script, and supposedly it's nearly done for a movie. Then we would have to get funding to get the movie made. So don't hold your breath yet, but it's coming along.
It's kind of like us spending 7 years working on The Death of Perseus based on my first novel that I wrote in '96.
Yeah.
We're not quite at the 7-year mark yet. We're at 5.
Hey, that's fine then. It's not, we reach 7. Once you get to 7, that's when you got to cut it off.
Right. So you've got a movie in the works, and you were also mentioning something about a pilot.
Well, I've got a script in the works, and we're also writing up treatments to make the same character into a series, and we're working on several other scripts of some of my other characters that are, let's say, Cy-Boar adjacent. It's easier to make a story with humans in it than giant warthog robot guys. But I recently met an effects guy who thinks he could make a good Cy-Boar costume. So maybe once we get better at making some of these live action things, we'll get into that. Yeah, I've been getting into the live action film community in Cleveland, where I now live. and meeting a bunch of people and working on some plans to make some movies.
Oh.
But not quite ready to make a Cy-Boar movie yet.
Yeah, I was going to say, as far as making a giant cybernetic boar, just ask the crew of the Amazing Spider-Man 2 about their attempts to make Rhino come to life.
Yeah. Well, they made a really great giant robot or giant costume of a cyborg boar man in that third Hellboy movie. If you saw that,
Oh, really?
that costume was amazing.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
I thought it was a CG character until I saw the behind the scenes, and I'm like, wait a minute, that was a costume? Oh man!
Wow.
You got to watch the third Hellboy. He was only in that one. Yeah.
I heard a rumor, more than a rumor, of course, that you were involved in a pretty significant Star Wars fan film. You want to talk about that a little bit?
May the 4th be with you all. Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, this has been a really exciting project that has nothing to do with Cy-Boar or comics, but I've enjoyed it a lot. So right after Rise of Skywalker came out, back right when the pandemic was starting there was this leak of this script. And the script is called Duel of Fates, and it was written by Colin Trevorrow and Derek Connolly, who were the original writers of Episode 9, before they got fired and then some other things happened until they brought back J.J. Abrams to make the movie that they ended up making. Mm-hmm. So a lot of people didn't like that movie very much. I was not very happy with it either. And really, I like just about everything Star Wars. I'm usually not that picky until I saw this one, and I was like, what the hell happened? So when I found out about this script, I thought it was interesting. And then only a couple weeks later, the actual script was in my hands. Like, I didn't expect that with Disney and all their processes, something like that would actually get leaked. But it did. So, of course, I printed it out and read it through. And then I had the idea, like, with my wife and kids, hey, why don't we act this out? I have a pile of action figures here. You know, I didn't have all the ones from the new trilogy. I didn't have so I had Lando instead of Finn and probably Princess Leia instead of Rey, but that was fine. We had a good laugh and, you know, moved them around the table while we read what their lines were going to be in the story. But that was really fun. So I said, you know, it would be fun to act this out and animate this somehow. And I batted it around for a couple weeks because I knew it would be a lot of work. But then, rather than just use my family and friends, one of my other friends is an actress, and she knew some people who would be voice actors in there. So we recruited some voice actors, voice talent, to do some of the roles, and got a couple of my other friends to do other roles, and we all acted it out, just like we're doing now, where we talked, but we read through the script with each person taking on a different role. And then we recorded all that, and then I was able to edit that and use action figures instead of actors. So I used action figures of all the Star Wars characters, and I actually had to buy a couple because, you know, I didn't have a Poe Dameron around my house or General Hux or whoever. But that was actually kind of fun because there were a bunch of new characters in this script that don't exist as action figures anyway. So I had to make my own by swapping the heads off of things, whatever. And then I had to make sets because there weren't sets for all of these different planets and space stations. And so this took me like almost a year to do all this stuff. Uh-huh. And I would put it out in segments. First 10 minutes of the movie, the second 10 minutes, and so on. And when I was done, I collected it all into Duel of the Fates, you know, the full movie. And I got thousands of hits on it so far. Which for me is pretty good. I'm not a big YouTuber, but it taught me a lot about how to, you know, get licensed music, how to edit movies in Adobe Premiere, how to work with voice actors, how to do lighting on a very tiny scale, and all the other things. So that I sent out the final one, and we had a virtual screening back in October. But then I still had a nagging feeling that, you know, it could be better if instead of the original licensed music that I officially licensed, we used the actual John Williams music. So my composer buddy, who helped with this project out in Japan, James Shields, if you ever need a composer, talk to him. He put it all together for me. And so He edited. We talked through this stuff over a couple months, and we edited it all together using original John Williams music, and matched it up to the parts of the story. So it's kind of a fan film, but it's kind of not, because this was an official script that Lucasfilm paid for by the director of Jurassic World. And the guy even on Twitter, he liked my thing. So it's a thing.
Wow.
I should
There
shut
you
up
go.
now and let you ask me a question or something.
Okay.
That's a lot.
That was definitely a lot. I'm not sure where to go with that, because that's pretty amazing. Other than go see this film right now, everybody. It's on YouTube, I'm assuming, right?
It sure is. It's on YouTube, and it's a complete movie. It's like 2 hours long, and the one that you can find is called Duel of the Fates Toy Box Special Edition. That's the one that came out today, just in time for May the 4th.
Nice.
There you go.
Yeah, I've actually been watching Darth, what's his name's adaptation of Darth Angelus's adaptation of Heir to the Empire, turning it into 3D CGI films. Have you ever thought of taking something in a? I mean, this is pretty damn ambitious, I have to say, what you've done. But have you ever thought of doing CGI animation or 2D animation with any of your projects?
I have a little bit. I've done 2D animation before, and it's very time consuming. The reason I did this the way I did was because I knew I could get it done in a vaguely reasonable amount of time. But as it's been like a year and a half, I don't know if that still counts as reasonable.
Well, it's better than 5.
Yeah, right. And because a lot of people were asking me, well, did I want to use stop motion? And I'm like, no, because stop motion's great, and I know how to do it. But I also know it takes a really long time.
Yeah.
Since it was basically just me animating almost all of it with a little bit of help from my friends or kids or whatever. How much time did I want to devote to this? So almost all the scenes, I think, could be better animated if I used that technique, or like you said, did it in CG, or if it was the Clone Wars quality, that'd be amazing.
Oh yeah.
But how much time do I want to devote to that versus every other project I have? So I'm happy with how it came out to a degree. I could always be better, but I think anything you make. And I'm working on some live action films now, so I think that's where I want to go next, is do more live action stuff. Because as this was going on, people were like, why don't you do more actual people? And I'm like, well, I didn't have any Stormtrooper from the new whatever it is era costumes. And of course, I didn't have access to all the different actors and actresses who needed in this movie. So the action figure thing was kind of fun. But the scale and scope of it really grew. Originally, I just thought it was going to be me hanging out in a couple of action figures. But in the end, I was filming it on mountaintops and in reservoirs and all over the place, which was really fun. With the action figures.
See, now that impresses me. That's a lot of ingenuity right there.
Well,
Oh yeah.
what was the most fun to me was the problem solving. So if they tell me, do you remember that scene in the actual final movie of Rise of Skywalker where 1,000 spaceships come out of hyperspace? That scene originated in this first version of the script. So, okay, how do I create that scene without CG? I had to figure out how to do it. Or if there's a boat chase, well, action figures are great, but they don't lend themselves to boat chases. So how do I do that, or every other thing? And I always had to come up with a solution. And one of the neat things that I kind of came up with was filming in front of my TV. So if I've got a large screen TV and I can put an image of, a picture of Coruscant or hyperspace or whatever it needs to be on the screen, and then have my spaceships in front of it and have my camera at just the right angle, I could make a composite shot. But it was composited like they do with The Mandalorian, where the background is pre-rendered and then you shoot all of it together so that the light and the reflections off of the background are better than they would be if you'd, say, shoot it on a blue screen and put it in late.
Right. So
I did blue screen stuff too.
So
But
so
none
you
of it's
did
great, but it was fun.
so you did kind of a primitive AR wall there.
That's exactly what the idea was. Yeah.
Nice.
One of my buddies is making one of those volume AR screens right now in Mansfield, Ohio, and for a business, and we've been talking about that stuff. But the technology is great, and there's so many things you can do so easily now. I mean, think about how you could just have an actor in front of your TV if you didn't want to have to go to a location that was or two. It's kind of neat.
Oh yeah, yeah. As long as you have reasonable resolution images to put up on the screen, the sky's the limit.
Yeah, and because this project was, nothing, no one was paying me for experimental. Certain shots, I feel like I totally nailed them, and I did an amazing job. Other times, it's like, oh, that could have been better, but did it get the story across? Yeah, probably well enough. But now, with my improved music, I feel like I should go back and improve all the visuals to be as good as this, because adding the John Williams takes it up a level.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Hmm.
And of course, you don't have to really worry about the so-called copyright issues because as a fan film, one of the big problems, of course, with hiring music, and of course, Varias and I know this intimately because we've had to hire composers,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
is licensing it basically.
Yep.
Even though you commission it specifically for that purpose, it has to be explicitly stated the usage and stuff like that. So, but still. For your directorial debut, you already now have a special edition, if you will.
That's exactly what I call it. And I use music through Adobe Music because I have the Adobe Creative, and one of the things you can do is license some music. So I think I got a free trial for like a week and just downloaded like a dozen songs or so that I wanted to use. That kind of had that Star Warsy feel to them.
Mm-hmm.
Now I'm talking about for the original draft, not this new one where he replaced it all with John Williams stuff.
Right.
But that meant all those songs I had legal licenses to use, and I had special key codes that Adobe provided. So anytime I uploaded something to YouTube, YouTube would instantly challenge me and say, "Ha, you don't own," and then I would have to file a dispute and prove, "No, I do own the music." Every time they instantly assume you cheated and stole somebody's music, though. It's really annoying,
Oh, I
especially
hate that.
after video after video after video. It's like, same music. I still own it. Like, fuck off. Yeah, whatever. Sorry, am I allowed to say that?
Yeah, you are just not in the first 5 minutes of the broadcast. That's all.
We're way past that.
We're way past that now. Yeah,
Well,
Varias
anyway,
had
it was very
to.
intense.
Yeah, Varias had to challenge the fair use on every one of her Batman Arkham trilogy Let's Plays when we did it on YouTube back in the day.
Yeah, I have a much more directly relevant sort of story though, and I've told Matt about this. I've talked about this before. I fronted a band for several years, and at one point, after the band broke up, all the music rights were signed over to me,
Yeah.
and so I posted one of the songs up on YouTube. Now, before all this happened, I was contacted by a company that published indie artists on compilation CDs. So the version song I gave them was not the version song I posted on YouTube, and I had a contract with them stating that their usage of the song was non-exclusive and that I could have them stop distributing it at any time if I wanted to. So I get a strike notice or copyright, whatever, from them, claiming that that's their music they have copyright to, and I was like, we about to fight. And when I wrote it all out and I explained, I said, while you do have a contract with me for the non-exclusive right of this song, I said, you have a different version of this song. And on top of that, you still don't have exclusivity to the song, no matter which version I post.
Mm-hmm.
So I got everything released, and I was able to monetize it, and I was happy again.
I think a lot of this stuff is automated, and it's not like some person's over there trying to screw you over. It's just they set up a bot listening for certain
Right.
key phrases or whatever, and that, although that's great for simplicity, it sucks for having to defend yourself.
My earliest copyright dispute with YouTube was back in 2011. I was recording a video of Doodles when she was a kitten, jumping against the wall while Adam was talking on the podcast in the background. And I said, I don't know how I prove to you that this is my own podcast playing in the background. Would you like links to Talk Shoe? I mean, what do you want? And they never got back to me. I may challenge that again because it's still on my channel.
I had a weird one with one of these videos where I got a challenge from somebody claiming it was some music that wasn't the music. It was some other music. And I'm like, how do I even challenge this? Because no, I do not have a license to that because it's not in my video. They ended up dropping it without explaining it. But like, that's annoying.
Yeah, if they don't respond within 30 days, it automatically falls off. And
Yeah,
then can monetize
right.
it.
Yeah, it automatically reverts to you as the.
Right.
I can't think of the word, but yeah,
Offer.
it automatically tips in your favor.
It just frustrates me that they instantly assume that you're trying to do something before you even have a chance to, like they're just assuming that you're not the copyright holder, basically.
Right.
Mhm.
It's completely reactionary. And of course,
Because-
during that 30 days while you're duking it out with whoever,
Yeah.
you can't monetize your video, and that's usually when the peak
Exactly.
views are.
Exactly. That's the entire point. And they should allow you to provide all this information up front. Actually, I did that. I put here's my code through Adobe, here's my code. But they don't look at that. They just challenge it.
Right.
That would be a very easy thing they could do. Like, if this is music, if you have music in here, can you prove you own it? Yes. Click, click, click. That should be very easy to do.
Right.
Anyway, whatever.
It's related to that because we stream on Twitch and everything. I released an entire album of my band's music
Sure.
to Spotify and several other places, and I'm the one who owns all the rights to it. We had this big back and forth. I said, anybody who wants to on Twitch can play my music. If they get any bullshit, I will fight with both the distributor and Twitch over that because it's my music.
Right.
It's like I will fight on their behalf because I told them they could.
Luckily, I've never had a dispute over the Starship Moonhawk theme. I've got my co-composer. That's how I'm titling it now. We share 50% responsibility. I wrote the melody. He composed and conducted it. The final version of the theme, and it was a legitimate collaborative effort because I can't write music to save my life. Kira will tell you.
You can come up with themes though.
So here's how I accomplish it. I hum it into. Thank you, Adam.
Yeah, sorry, hit a thing.
I hum it into Score Cloud and it turns it into sheet music, sort of.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, sort of is the operative modifier.
Mm-hmm. And luckily, I'm not a tone deaf idiot. So I'm able to actually hum it.
Needed.
Yeah, citation needed. Thank you. So I'm able to hum it into Score Cloud. And then it creates sheet music that anybody who actually knows how to read sheet music can then decipher and decode into real music. So.
Real music. Now, to add some credence to what Mac has just said, I am apparently part of the population that does not have an internal monologue, an internal voice, or internal sound. All of the things that I deal with come to me in either words imprinted or colors and shapes. Probably why I'm an artist. So anytime I'm helping arrange music, I'm not always that great at just like picking up on it out of the blind. I need a reference point.
Yep. I think I'm like you. My wife is constantly saying I'm tone deaf, and I'm like, I'm really good at this, but she does not believe me.
For me, it's contextual. If I have the music or the pitch or something to work from while I'm, hearing and doing, but it takes a lot of like focus. But if I'm going blind with no music and nothing to listen to, dear God.
I did want to offer clarification for our listeners out there that one can be tone deaf and one can be an idiot and not necessarily be both. I'm just claiming that I am a tone deaf idiot.
Now you feel bad because I said I was.
Yeah,
also-
tone deaf people aren't idiots. It's just some people are idiots and tone
I
deaf.
wanted to clarify that so I didn't have to post a retraction next week. And,
It was really, my feelings were really hurt.
that was directed at me, not anyone else. So just to be clear. And now
It's
for
fine.
another Wilhelm scream. Okay. Lou, I have a less of a question and more of an idea for you, and this is not a story idea, but a process idea. Have you had a chance to look at my YouTube channel and see our adaptation of my webcomic, The Lavenders?
No, but I will.
Okay. And for those of you who want to check it out on the stream, it is youtube.com/Mr. Palladino. That's our channel. It's called the Moonhawk Network, and we have Starship Moonhawk and all of our other animation projects going over there. Have you considered turning your pilot/movie script into...
Off then on again. So
You are fired.
Into the sun.
out of a cannon into the sun. Have you considered turning it into a motion comic?
In this case, no, because my collaborator is a director who's directed short films in England, and we're intending that he will get funding and actually direct it as a movie.
Oh, okay.
But I'm always up for other ideas, and I have made comics into animations before using Flash. Now,
Okay.
as you might know, Flash isn't even around anymore, so it shows how to go that way.
Well,
But
now it's called Adobe Animate.
yeah, right. And so that would be pretty neat. And I just not something I've pursued in a while because right now I'm interested in making live action stuff, not because I think it's a bad idea. I think for certain projects, it's the perfect thing. And even for my Duel of the Fates thing, it probably would have been really good to make it for a variety of reasons.
Well, I was thinking that you and your associates have the artistic skills necessary to create new artwork for that purpose, and that's what we're attempting to do with the last 3 episodes of our first season.
We actually made a different script a few years ago that we were planning to make Cy-Boar CG comic animation out of, but that project ended up not.
Okay.
So, there's always things in the works. It's just which one's going to get to the finish line, right?
Right. Yeah, we started making original artwork because the comic basically ended at the end of the second chapter.
Yeah.
But this is like a decade in the making. But we ended with the second chapter, and then of course the host burped. Don't use Smack Jeeves, kids. They will betray you. They will betray you.
So you don't have copies of him?
Oh no, I have the original artwork and all that stuff. We actually cut it up and adapted it into the motion comic for the first 7 episodes of the 10-episode first season.
That's cool.
That's a question for you, Verizon. You're muted.
I'm trying to remember, but I don't remember exactly. I think that's right, though.
I think we have 7 episodes currently on YouTube, and so they're not as impressive as these last 3 will be because these are our proof of concept for season 2. But yeah, I was just I don't know, it just struck me as a thought. I was like, ooh, wait, I got this, but I wanted to wait until we got through all the other stuff first before.
That's all right. I love hearing ideas.
Yeah.
Good.
But yeah, the new episodes are going to be 1080p with completely new artwork never before seen. But we've kind of abandoned the whole webcomic concept since I'm already adapting all of my comics into animated OVAs and motion comics and feature films anyway.
How long did it take you to do the animation adaptation for each issue or whatever, like per page or whatever?
I don't know how long did we did it in like a couple of sessions, maybe with 4 hours each.
It's not bad.
I don't remember. I'm guessing you're correct.
Yeah, it was actually the editing and placement because like I was watching Kira do it, and it was just like boop boop boop. And it's like, oh, I'm gonna put this here, and then I'm gonna have this one slide across the screen, and then they're gonna be talking like this, and I'm gonna cut this one out of the background because the background sucks. She drew
What
most
is-
of the artwork for the first two acts of the series. We
Mhm. Yeah.
How well does that work for action as opposed to dialogue scenes?
Oh, it gets a little more creative with the actiony stuff. Sometimes I have to actually create something to kind of fill the gap if anything's to go across. But
camera jitter, rotation.
a lot of sometimes doing like rag zoom, separating the background from the character to create parallax and things like
Yeah.
that, so we can actually, yeah.
That's cool. Yeah, I would be afraid that would be like every page. Not afraid, but like I don't have a lot of characters talking as much as running around kicking each other. So
Well, I mean, I have a background. I have a background in computers and graphic design. I'm a self-taught artist with no animation experience whatsoever, and even I was able to put some of these effects together myself
Nice.
in After Effects. I mean, it's really once you get the basics down, it's actually pretty quick. If you're not doing full-on animation, you can actually move through this stuff pretty quickly. I'm actually contemplating finishing the 36 scenes that we have for the next episode and trying to put it together myself, but that's a story for another time.
It's when we get into the heavy sci-fi visual effects laden stuff that it becomes a lot of layering and complex visual effects, and that's kind of where I live.
I really need to get into After Effects. Everybody's saying I should learn how to use it, and I probably should have for the Star Wars stuff.
I would totally agree with that.
Everybody, yeah, I think I would probably do well at it. I just only have so many things at one time.
Yeah, yeah. See, I told you this was going to be more like a conversation.
That's
Yeah.
all right.
You even got to interview us.
Yeah, there we go.
Well, you do it.
Whoa, we're getting a lot of feedback there. What was that?
Ooh,
Yeah, we're getting a lot of feedback there.
weird.
Yeah, I don't know who's feedbacking though.
It ain't me.
I'm getting the ring lights up on Adam. Adam, I'm sorry. I think you might be getting some crosstalk there.
Yeah, it's kind of weird.
Speaking of Adam, we've been going for a little while here, so let me give this opportunity towards the end here to give the rest of our crew a chance to ask any questions, maybe more specific and directed. Adam, did you have anything you wanted to ask Lou?
Not really, no.
All right,
Okay.
Kevin.
None on this end.
All right, well then let's keep talking about fan films.
I mean, sure.
No, but seriously, what's your next big thing that you've got coming down the pike?
Well, every July they do this thing called the 48-hour film project, where you try to write, act out, and edit, and then submit a film in 48 hours straight. So right now I've recruited a team of actors and actresses. I've got some camera people, maybe a sound guy, another guy who does effects, and we're looking at some locations to shoot. So we're going to do that in the summer and hopefully enter this in some film festivals if it's any good.
Oh wow,
Oh yeah.
that's
What's
exciting.
weird though is you're not supposed to write the story ahead of time. So maybe it'll have something to do with my Cy-Boar universe of characters. Maybe I don't know yet because you can't. That would be cheating because you don't know what genre your story is going to be. You have to pick a genre out of a hat. You get two choices. So it could be this story has to be horror or action, or maybe it's going to be a comedy or music. I don't know yet.
Wow.
So that makes it challenging. I don't know anything about writing musicals, so hopefully I don't get that one. And let's say I have this great location I want to film at the motorcycle warehouse, but if they tell me I have to make a cowboy movie,
Oh boy.
Yeah.
I mean, you could really do a cowboy movie with almost anything.
Well, if you do get the musical genre, I may be able to connect you with a guy who did supplemental music for the Queen's Gambit.
That sounds awesome. Well, if all of a sudden in middle of July I'm like, dude, give me that Queen's Gambit person, you don't know why.
and his singer songwriter wife also.
Nice. That's very cool.
Yeah. Yeah.
I've met a variety of interesting actors here in Cleveland who movies and stuff, and I'm always more interested in the directing than I am in the acting. But you need to know everybody to make any kind of production, so that's pretty neat.
Yeah, I've been very fortunate that we've been able to connect with some big names in voiceover and
That's great.
anime dubbing. People who've worked with Funimation, Sentai Filmworks,
Nice.
Bang Zoom, Viz.
We could go down a list, but we do that every week.
Right? Well, you see, but this time I'm not dropping individual names.
That's why I was making that joke.
I wasn't
Completely
planning
different.
on it either. I wasn't planning on it either.
Yeah, it was funny when I made the Star Wars thing. Is several of these people who, at the time I worked with them, I didn't know what they'd been in, and I'm like, shit, I watched that show, and they were on that. Wow, that's pretty cool.
Right? Yeah, it just, and you know what's funny about it? I tell people this all the time. I said, you never know what someone's going to say until you ask them. Just like getting guests on this show. It's like, hey, you got any time at, like, I don't know, 11 o'clock Eastern on Wednesday the 20th, whatever?
What else am I going to be doing? Sleeping?
That's how I've gotten so many jobs, too. Just going, I'm probably not going to get this, but I'll ask anyway.
Well, and for a lot of creative endeavors, a lot of people are actually happy to help with your vision if you have a strong vision that they want to be part of.
Mm-hmm.
I was actually surprised how many people wanted to help with my Star Wars thing because it's kind of goofy. I'll admit it.
I mean, Star Wars has an unusual sort of unifying factor involved
That's
with it.
true.
I mean, people they either universally love it or they universally hate it. There's not a lot of in between, is there?
Not anymore. It's become this weird polarized nightmare.
Yeah, but some of that's like the Disney effect and the new trilogy and stuff. Star Wars was always, I don't know, kind of unified, I think.
Yeah.
I
All right, let Lou talk.
That's
Sorry,
okay.
Lou.
A lot of the people I ended up using for my voice actors were big Star Wars fans, and they didn't care. They're just like, yeah, we can read a script. That'd be fun. And, they're like, who's this character? And I'm like, well, here's the scene that General... You guys like Space Hitler and blah, blah, blah. And so when the guy showed up, he gave a fairly good performance that sounded kind of like that guy.
Nice.
And he just because he wasn't a big Star Wars fan ended up not mattering. But if someone who really enjoys acting, yeah, you passionate about Star Wars in a way.
That's always the best. That's always the
Yeah.
best.
Like I completely feel that because I am hardcore, ridiculously a Star Wars fan, and I know way too many things from back when all of the role-playing games and all the other things came out.
Yeah.
See,
I'm very much a fangirl.
see, I've
I
always
could talk about old school EU stuff for hours and how this movie does or doesn't tie into it and whatever. But rather than complain about Rise of Skywalker, I found it a lot better to make my own project rather than just be negative and go on about how that movie sucked.
Yeah, one of the very first things I ever did when I bought my own film camera was me and a friend actually did a lightsaber battle.
Nice.
And I did all the effects for it, and
rotoscoping.
sad part is, unfortunately, back then, for size constraints and the places I had to post, I had to export them all as FLVs. And I no longer have all of the original materials to recompile those into a format I can upload to YouTube.
But do you have the original somewhere? Somebody might be able to figure it out for you.
I have no idea where the original might be.
I have a buddy who's working on a business right now to convert old formats into modern ones. Like he's basically investing in the machines to do that. So if you had old VHS or micro SDs or whatever, he would be able to translate them to you into the newest format so you could edit them again.
I think I still have all the old raw footage.
Yeah, there you go. That's what I'm saying. Well, yeah, but not the
Yeah.
edited footage.
Right. And
Yeah.
that's the frustration. I spent weeks working on it, so
Yeah.
I don't know if I want to do that again.
I was just thinking
Especially
about
with
what
how bad the fighting was in it. The choreography was terrible.
it's more about the memories than the quality of your choreography.
Also true.
Yeah, I don't know what I was going to say there.
All right. I'm afraid we got to wrap up because we don't run the 4-hour podcasts that we used to.
Yeah.
But this was great, and I really enjoyed talking to you. Before we go, one last quick question for you: do you have any big appearances coming up, like cons,
Probably
anything
not.
like that?
I have a couple comic conventions I'm considering, but I'm not signed up for them yet, so I wouldn't bother to mention that.
I see.
The main thing I would like to talk about is for everybody to check out the film, though. Which
Hold on a second. You cut out for a second there. Adam, I have to mute you for a second because you've got some crosstalk. Hold on one second here.
there's something.
All right. Try that again. I'm sorry.
No, I was just going to say I don't have any appearances you need to worry about, but if you want to, check out YouTube, the Duel of the Fates Toy Box Special Edition. That's what it's called. Or Cy-Boar at cy-boar.com.
All right.
And I always welcome feedback or ideas. So thank you for any of that stuff. Maybe I will make a CG something soon. Who knows?
There you go. Well, we'll have to have you on the show again when your next big project comes out, and let's not be 13-year strangers here again.
Definitely. Well, thanks for having me. Have
Absolutely.
a good day.
Yep. Thanks a lot. And now we're going to go to the news and entertainment section. So now I'm going to unmute Adam, and Lou, you're welcome to continue to listen in and contribute if you wish. So,
I'll stick around.
So Adam, you're back on the air. Sorry about that.
Yeah, the connection here has gotten spotty, so as we should press quickly on this.
Mm-hmm.
So first up, an update from last week when we talked about the DeSantis Disney row, not entirely unexpected. The Central Florida homeowners have filed suit against him because it turns out they don't want their taxes going up thousands of dollars because of a shitty PR stunt.
Yep.
Go figure.
Imagine that.
And the laws are pretty clear about the whole Reedy Creek situation. The only way that you can pretty much change the status of that is via the support of the people themselves. And, well, yeah, I don't think they want to be involved in something like this, and they also don't want their tax bills like previously noted, but their tax bills going up $1,000 a year.
Yeah.
Oof.
Yeah. So
Odious.
Because the thing about it is that because when you take away the special agreement that they had, which by the way Disney got because of their issues in Anaheim. Fun fact: that's the reason why they had that type of situation in Florida, and why they kind of demanded it. Because, well, in Anaheim, they've always had a problem with Anaheim in order to expand, in order to be bigger than they are. So they wanted to make sure that they didn't have that problem. So thus, you had stuff like this. There's also the simple case of the fact that Epcot was supposed to be something else. But more to the point, with the situation, yeah, it turns out that when you take away this, what you're basically saying is you want Orange County and the city of Orlando, the city of Kissimmee, all these people to take care of something that they didn't have to take care of before, and in order to pay for it, they have to jack up the tax bills, particularly on the income tax side, which, that's $1,000 out of everybody in Orlando. It doesn't matter if you're a Republican or a Democrat or whatever you are. If you live in Orange County, you're going to add an additional $1,000 to your tax bill because Ron DeSantis hates Disney.
Has anything happened because of this blowback yet?
Yes.
I mean, the process is starting with this lawsuit.
Okay.
Yes.
I mean, it's starting. The ball is rolling.
Well, keep in mind this thing. The whole thing hasn't actually happened yet. It's got a date of
next
summer
year.
2023.
Yes, summer
Yeah,
next
right.
year. Right.
Because
That might never happen.
Wow.
because they're essentially using this as a blackmail chip.
Right. And of
Right.
course,
But it's a
blackmail
hostage.
chip only works if they cower.
Yeah, it's a hostage that they don't actually possess.
Right. Exactly.
Oh God, I love hyperbolic politics.
Well, politics has gotten. I don't want to say hyperbolic because what's going on isn't hyperbolic anymore.
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
Brinksmanship
But
is always a good word.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
Attempted brinksmanship.
I think it's a discussion that we should have for another time because it's way too late for a discussion like this.
We can wait until Roe actually falls.
Jeez.
Yes.
Which like the Twitter acquisition and the Supreme Court's decision and this whole thing with Florida, all of this is in the works. It hasn't actually happened yet, so we need to be clear about that.
Right.
There's still a chance it could go the other way, but I'm not holding my breath.
You're onto something here though, because if we're really worried about news that hasn't quite happened yet as like the big news, that doesn't seem like that's always the way things work. And why is that suddenly what's going on right now so much?
Well, it's like
Just a coincidence?
because it's stuff that was never supposed to happen.
Well,
like
sure.
It's like
it was
nobody
closed doors decisions that were never supposed to get out.
Of course.
Well, no. I mean, like,
oh
no. I mean these things were never supposed to happen. Like, now granted, Disney did plan for this thing, but nobody thought that Florida politicians would turn against the number one employer in this fucking state. Like,
right.
no,
because nobody thought that the number one employer that the Florida politicians would do something so boneheaded that it would piss off any corporation that wants to save public face.
Yeah.
In addition to the actual people who hate it.
Well, the beauty part is Disney doesn't have to do anything. They just have to sit back and say, well, I mean, these are the guys you elected.
It seems pretty likely DeSantis might back off on that one. But some of these other things, like, I doubt the people being pissed off is going to change the Supreme Court.
Well, that was clear from Alito's memo.
Right.
Like, we'll have to see what actually happens there because, that's actually an earlier...
And when we do that, we'll have to talk about some of the implications of that because it sounds pretty bad.
Yeah, and you don't know for sure.
Apparently, Roberts is actually pushing to not have Roe v. Wade be overturned, rather that this case become the new standard, which is a fine difference because that's the kind of thing that won't trigger laws on the books.
It's basically to replace Casey.
Yeah. But we do not have time to talk about this.
No.
Like that would probably be whenever we do Last News Desk again. Like, if I'm being honest, because this is a very complicated subject.
Yeah.
But moving on.
Moving on.
Yeah, I'm like, let's see.
Yeah, I was only offering clarity for people who were getting freaky about it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Fair enough.
We're gonna put a bookmark on this and save this for later, folks. Don't worry.
Right. So Adam, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
But next.
Yes. Yeah. So shifting to video game news, because we did not have a spot for this on my show. Tomb Raider's been sold, or is in the process of being sold. Like,
Really?
The IP is
Square Enix sold off like practically all of the non-Japanese things that they have, so that they can so that they have more money to invest in crypto.
yes.
They explicitly said that this was the reason why they were doing it.
It's one reason, yes. Like, and not just crypto, but like they said NFTs. Right as the market is cratering, 92%.
Yep.
You know, I'm like,
because the game's
Well,
over.
that's just how you know it's a good time to buy. You see, you buy low and then
Yeah.
you sell high. So obviously, eventually, it's going to come back, right?
Yeah.
and they are looking to, and they are looking to invest also in AI and the cloud, you know, for more future-sounding technologies. But
only getting into the game 15 to 20 years late.
anyway, though the thing is, everyone's been kind of sticker shocked at how much, let's just call it IDOS, is going for. And that number is three. Just let me finish.
Wow.
Thank you. Yeah. $300 million.
I could see that.
I don't know if that's high or low.
It's low.
Yeah, it's low.
Yeah.
Well, it's not as low as Yahoo selling off Tumblr for 1.1 million.
Yeah. Yeah, it's generally considered to be in the low range in terms of the IPs that have been sold. I mean, obviously, Tomb Raider is the superstar here, but also listed were Deus Ex,
I love it.
Thief, and Legacy of Kain. I'm like,
Not
See now.
like, and in this conversation, we have yet to get to the buyer, and that is Embracer Group. I'm like, now I'm not sure how many people here know who Embracer is, but
no, that's a new one to me.
Yeah.
I'm like,
I know most of the players in this game, but that's a new
You're
one.
another one of those groups that's been buying up a lot of stuff lately.
no, I know Embracer very well. I'm like, they're a hobby of mine, let's say, because they've been making a lot of maneuvers, but if you don't know their name, you probably will at some point, because they've been buying up a lot of stuff, and they are the people behind a lot of groups now. They have 10 what they call operating groups, that the likes of THQ Nordic, Deep Silver / Koch Media, or Koch Media, like they're the ones who recently purchased Dark Horse and Asmodee.
Cool.
Oh.
So, they've been, like I said, they've been throwing their tendrils around a lot of places, and this is definitely among their most high-profile acquisitions. I couldn't say if it was more high-profile than Dark Horse or Asmodee, but it's certainly up there. And
they're getting in the market.
Yes. People keep asking what the end game of Embracer is, and it's like multimedia would be my guess. People keep saying subscription service. It's like, no, they just like owning a lot of stuff there.
Stuff they can cultivate into other stuff.
Yes, and connect to other stuff.
Do they need to hire new people to manage all this stuff, though? I mean, that's a couple.
They do. They have like 14,000 employees, to give you an example of how big they are. Like, they're a bit of a paradox, because they're one of the biggest companies in gaming now, but they're also not. Not in terms of, like, market share. They like to state that they are like 1% of the market about. Like, it's perhaps a difference between them and Tencent, another
Yeah.
They're a company that's
Yeah.
been gobbling up everything and anything in the video game space, whereas they are the literal biggest, not just in terms of like overall company, but they're the biggest video game company out there.
Yeah.
Like, yeah. And as far as what this all means for the franchises going forward, no, outside of what's been announced, and that is there is a new Tomb Raider game in development, and that's using the Unreal Engine 5 technology. It was specifically showcased at an Unreal Engine conference. Like, a lot of stuff is unknown, but it should be mentioned that the likelihood of some of these inert or just like downright dead IP coming back to life is far higher than they were under Square Enix. Like,
Yeah, I was going to say, this is not as big of a loss as some people might have thought, because Square Enix, while they do have a fairly big, well, they have a very big name in video gaming, they also haven't been doing much with any of their non-core properties,
okay, yeah, so now, getting back to Square Enix, like, they're using the money from the sale to invest in all that wacky shit, but the real reason they're selling their Western division, basically, is because they haven't been doing well. Like, in fact, they've been doing pretty shit. Like, because their most recent games from the Crystal Dynamics was Marvel Avengers. Like,
Yeah.
and from Eidos Montreal was Guardians of the Galaxy. Now, I understand Guardians of the Galaxy is a actual good game, but I don't think you can say that, it's like apparently it was selling within expectations, but I don't think Square Enix had much in the way of expectations. Like,
especially after Avengers
and as far
bomb.
as apparently it's come out. I'm not exactly sure how reliable this number is, so take it with a grain of salt, that apparently Square Enix has lost $200 million on this Marvel deal.
Jeez.
something, not a small number.
Ooh,
Yeah.
That
is a big number.
Yeah, that ain't chump change.
And to further compound things, Square Enix has actually released the financials of the studio. And it could be more dire, as they are making money, but it's like $9 million. Kind of money. And I mean, that's
it could be more dire, but it's a non-zero amount of dire.
It would be life-changing
like,
if it was in my pocket, but for Disney, it's like out of their, it's like chump change.
Yeah.
Well, for Square
Enix.
Well, for Square Enix as well.
Yeah.
Which is the real reason why they are divesting themselves of these divisions. Now, not everything is going, as it is known that Square Enix is retaining Just Cause, Life is Strange, and Outlanders out of Western IP.
Some of their more daring projects.
Some of their externally produced stuff. Also, Life is Strange is arguably their most successful Western product right now. I'm not even joking about that.
That sounds about right.
I'm not surprised for keeping it. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So, it is also known that Embracer is purchased overall 50 titles or 50 IP. We do not know the entire list. It is suspected that it's most of the old Eidos cachet.
Adios,
there are some lingering questions, like, is Fear Effect going with that? That is actually unknown, because that is actually being used by Forever Entertainment right now, to cite one example. Everyone's expecting, we'll be hearing more on the plans when the deal closes, which is expected about between July and September of this year.
So Q3.
This is just the latest earth-shattering merger and acquisition that has been happening in the video game space this year. Like, trust me, like every other week on our show, we have to talk about, Bungie being bought out or Activision being bought out and so on and so forth. So this kind of thing is very hot right now.
Yeah, I mean,
Right.
I guess at the very least is that we're running out of stuff to sell and buy at this point.
You would think.
I mean,
something capitalism.
Yeah, I mean, unless
it's all
Microsoft merch tomorrow or Nintendo gets out of the business.
You never
I
run
mean,
out of
things
stuff to buy.
that confuse me because this whole industry is capitalism. Like,
Yeah, I mean,
what are you expecting? The communism to be in the video game industry? No.
no.
I like how you put that too.
Well, it's such a bizarre statement. Like, yeah, of course, the game company that's supposed to make money is being sold for money because money is powering all of this.
Yeah, money talks.
So,
Wow.
anyway, so I think that's about all the news that we can deal with.
All the
Because
all
it's
the
1
all we can
a.m.
mustard.
It's because it's 1 in the
Well,
morning and East Coast time.
Yeah, there's more that we could talk about, but I kind of want to wrap this up.
Right.
1 in the morning.
Yeah, we'll hand it over next week.
All right. Well, this has been a very lively discussion, and I'm pleased that we were able to keep things going. So that's always a good thing. Let's see. Next up on the channel tomorrow, of course, I will be playing more Final Fantasy IV: The After Years, and we will be diving into Palom's storyline. So I'm fairly excited about that, and I did a little cheating and started watching H.C. Bailey's playthrough of it on YouTube to get a sneak preview because I'm not a giant fan of the character of Palom. He's kind of annoying, but it's actually kind of interesting, and so hopefully we'll be able to keep the episode exciting. So, and of course, if he's available, Galix will be in chat commentating on us as we go. So,
If I remember, which I will try to.
Yep. And I will, of course, try to make sure that we appear at 8 o'clock Pacific time instead of 9 o'clock like I have been. Between these headaches and everything else I've had going on, I haven't had a really great time these last few weeks. But as I said, a couple of positive developments have helped alleviate some of my stress. So I think we'll probably be able to go forward on time in the immediate foreseeable future. But that's what's coming up tomorrow, and of course over the weekend we'll have more FPS shenanigans, Overwatch Edition on Saturday, and one of our cohorts from Paladins is a pro player for Overwatch, and gave me some tips on how to get a possible beta code for Overwatch 2. By watching leagues starting tomorrow, which I was reading about. I think the league play starts May 5th. So.
Apparently the watchership for Overwatch 2 has gone down rather sharply. So.
Yeah, and what's interesting is that our viewership for Overwatch 1 has actually gone up. At least it has
well,
for
we'll
me.
See.
I can't speak for Varias, but
I'm not going to say it's not worth trying to play for yourself. It's interesting that it has not caught on the way that I'm sure they expected it to.
Right. Well, I mean, and to be honest with you, aside from the new maps and a handful of new models, they haven't deployed all of the new Overwatch 2 models for all the characters yet. So it's actually using the Overwatch 1 engine to pull in stuff into the beta. So it's not a full release yet by any stretch of the imagination. So we'll have more on that as it develops, but I would like to get into it because I'd like to play Sojourner and a couple of other aspects of the new game just to give it a try. And I'm especially miffed because I was denied by circumstances into getting into the beta the previous 2 attempts. So we'll see. But other than that, of course, like I said, Sunday will be SD Gundam G Generation 0 for the PlayStation 1, starting at approximately 4 p.m. Pacific. So be there, be square, and that's what we got going on. And again, special thanks to our guest this week, Lou Graziani, for being an amazing and awesome person, and also a good sport starting late with us.
Thanks for having me. It was fun.
All right. So that's it for this week. On behalf of the crew at Moonhawk Studios Presents, I'm Mac Paladin. Thanks for watching. Stay safe out there, kids.